I never thought the first time someone said, "What did you do with the 200 grand?" They'd be looking at me like I'd stolen it. I'm not a gambler, not a move fast and break things guy. I'm the one who balances the petty cash down to the last cent and double checks if a coffee is coded to the right cost center. I'm boring on purpose. That's why they hired me. So when my manager, Kyle, leaned into my cubicle that Tuesday and said, "Hey, can you come with me to the small conference room? Just need to clear up a couple of things," I didn't feel guilty. I just felt that low, familiar anxiety you get when someone says your name and conference room in the same sentence. The day up to that point had been aggressively normal. Our office sits on the 9th floor of a glass box downtown. I work in project accounting for a construction company that's trying very hard to look like a tech startup. Exposed ceilings, bad coffee, motivational quotes in the bathrooms. I come in at 8:15, open 3 screens, and live my life between Excel, our accounting software, and banking portals. For the last 6 months, I'd been the one watching over a new special initiatives account. It was Kyle's baby. The pitch was simple: high margin, fast turnaround renovation projects for corporate clients. The account had its own subledger, separate budget, separate vendor list. Kyle called it our rocket ship. He also had this new habit of hovering behind my chair. "Just make sure everything for SI-12 goes through vendor 519, okay?" he'd say, tapping the back of my monitor with a knuckle. "They're handling a lot of the logistics for us." Vendor 549 had a forgettable name, Northline Facilities, LLC. No logo, no website. The W-9 had come in already filled out, which wasn't unusual in itself, but the address was a P.O. box in a suburb 40 minutes away. "Do we have a contact there?" I'd asked once. Yeah, it's in my email," Kyle had said, waving it away. "They're fine. They're on a couple of other projects. Just process the invoices when they come in." So I did, at first. 5,000 here, 12,000 there, always tied to some vague site prep or consulting bundle. No timesheets, no receipts attached beyond a PDF invoice with clean fonts and generic descriptions. The thing about being the spreadsheet guy is patterns jump out at you whether you want them to or not. By the 3rd month, Northline had quietly collected just under $80,000. All approved by Kyle in the system, all signed off on with his digital credentials. The project managers whose job codes were on those invoices signed them too. But when I'd emailed one of them, Mark, about a description that looked off, he'd written back, "If Kyle approved, it's good." He said these were packaged services from his vendor. No idea on the line items. Something tightened in my chest when I read that. Not panic, not yet. Just a feeling like a loose screw in the back of a chair you sit on every day. I started doing what I always do when something feels off. I documented. I exported the vendor ledger for Northline and saved a copy to my personal drive on the server with the date in the file name. I started CCing myself on emails where Kyle mentioned them. I wrote down which POs the invoices tied to in a little black notebook I kept in my drawer. Not because I thought I'd ever need it, but because I like being able to answer questions. Questions came faster than I expected. On Monday, our CFO, Anita, had stopped by Kyle's office. Her office is down the hall, glass walls, always cold. I'd been walking past to the kitchen when I heard her say, low and clipped, "We're off by 200 in special initiatives. That's not rounding. Where is it?" I didn't linger. I got my coffee, went back to my desk, and pretended my heart wasn't suddenly loud in my ears. That night, at home, I opened my VPN and pulled up the SI account overview. On paper, everything balanced. Billings, costs, margins. Nothing screamingly wrong. But I knew enough to know that Anita doesn't walk down a hallway for a rounding error. Tuesday morning, Kyle didn't do his usual "what's up, team" routine. He came in late, didn't take his jacket off, and spent an hour staring at his screen. When he finally stood up, he walked straight to my cubicle. "Got a minute?" he said. "Sure," I answered, saving my workbook. He led me into the small conference room, the one with the 2 bright lights and the TV no one ever uses. HR was already there, Melissa with a notebook, which is never a good sign. She gave me a tight smile. "Grant, thanks for joining us," she said. "This shouldn't take long. We just have a few questions about some transactions you processed in the Special Initiatives account." My stomach dropped a fraction, but I kept my face neutral. "Okay," I said. "What's going on?" Kyle sat opposite me, elbows on the table, fingers laced a little too tightly. He didn't waste time. "What did you do with it?" he asked. I frowned. "With what?" "The 200, he said. "The 200K. Don't play dumb." For a second, the room narrowed to the sound of the HVAC. 200,000, I repeated. "What are you talking about?" Kyle's face changed by degrees. All the color went out of it, like someone had pulled a plug behind his eyes. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about clarifying a few transactions. This was about someone deciding I looked like the perfect person to take a fall. The silence after I said 200,000, "What?" lasted just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. Melissa cleared her throat first. "Let's walk through this step by step," she said, flipping open her notebook. "No one is accusing anyone of anything yet. We just need to understand the discrepancy." "Yet? People in HR are very careful with adverbs." Kyle forced a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Look, Grant, nobody's calling you a criminal," he said, "but Anita's flagged a $200,000 variance in Special Initiatives. You're the one posting most of the entries there. We just need to know if anything got misallocated or diverted." Diverted. Nice word. I felt heat crawl up my neck, not from guilt, but from the way he said it, as if we were already halfway to me confessing to skimming off the top. "I post entries that are approved," I said slowly, "by project managers and by you. I don't move money on my own." "That's not entirely accurate," Kyle shot back. "You have full access to the subledger. You can create and edit vendors, process credits, reclass charges. You've told me yourself that you sometimes clean things up after the fact." "I clean up descriptions," I said. "I fix coding when someone chooses the wrong project. I don't create phantom vendors and pay them 6 figures. If there's a $200,000 hole, it's not because of a typo." My irritation was starting to bleed through. Good. I wanted it to. Calm doesn't mean weak. Melissa's pen hovered. "Can we maybe take a look at specific transactions?" she suggested. "Kyle, do you have the details Anita sent?" He slid a printed packet across the table. "Here," he said. "It's basically a roll-up. Multiple smaller payments over the last 6 months, mostly through one vendor." He glanced at me. "Northline Facilities. Ring a bell?" My jaw tightened. "Of course it rings a bell," I said. "You told me to make sure everything for SI-12 went through them." Kyle's eyebrows shot up like he'd been personally offended. "I never said that." "Actually, you did," I replied. "Several times. At my desk. You said they were handling logistics." "That's not the issue," he snapped. "The issue is that Anita can't tie those payments to any real work. No supporting reports, no site visit logs, no PM sign-offs beyond the bare minimum. If someone's been using that vendor to siphon money." He let the sentence hang and looked at me. The room got smaller. "You're trying to pin this on me," I said, more to test the words than anything else. "No," Melissa cut in quickly. "We're not pinning anything on anyone. We're just—" "He's the only one with day-to-day access to those entries," Kyle said, steamrolling her. "Look, man, if you got in over your head, we just need you to be honest. People make mistakes. Anita might be willing to keep this internal if we can explain it." There it was. The script. I was supposed to look at the floor, stammer something about covering some debts, and take whatever quiet deal they dangled so the company could say they handled it. Clean narrative. Rogue employee. Lesson learned. Anger settled in my chest like a weight. I thought about the late nights reclassing entries project managers had dumped into the wrong jobs. I thought about the way Kyle had told jokes in front of the team about me being his human calculator. I thought about him hovering behind my chair, tapping the monitor near Northline's name. I also thought about the folder on my personal drive labeled SI Northline Backup, and the fact that I had, sitting in my inbox, his own emails specifying which peeps to assign to that vendor. I wasn't the one who was in over his head. I folded my hands on the table. If there's a $200,000 variance, I want to see exactly which transactions Anita flagged, I said. Every invoice number, every approval, every bank payment. Kyle scoffed. This is not a negotiation, Grant. It's not, I agreed. It's a fact-finding meeting. So let's use facts. Who has access to create vendors in the system? Accounting managers, Melez said carefully, and Anita. And me, Kyle added, obviously. Not me, I said. I can't create vendors. I can't add bank details. I can only choose from existing ones. Kyle opened his mouth, then closed it again. Another small piece of color left his face. Melissa checked her notes. That's correct, she murmured. Non-manager staff don't have vendor creation rights. Okay, I continued. Who requested the setup for Northline facilities? Melissa glanced at Kyle. He shifted in his seat. I did, he said quickly. But that doesn't mean anything. Setting up a vendor is normal. The problem is the volume of payments and lack of support. If someone inside accounting has been diverting... You keep saying diverting, I interrupted, like the money just evaporated into the air. Someone approved each of those invoices. Someone triggered each of those wires. Melissa's pen was moving fast now. The more Kyle talked, the more she wrote. I took a breath, forced my voice back to something level. Look, I said, I'm not signing off on responsibility for numbers I didn't control. If Anita thinks there's a problem, we should pull logs. Audit trails, access history on the vendor file. IT can show exactly which user IDs created, modified, and paid what. Kyle's head snapped toward me. We don't need to make this bigger than it is, he said sharply. Anita wants answers by end of day. If you can just walk us through your process. IT logs exist for a reason, I said. If I'm the problem, they'll show it. If I'm not, they'll show that too. Why would we guess when we can know? That was when I saw it, a flicker of real fear in his eyes. It was small, blink and you'd miss it. The kind of fear you only notice if you've been staring at spreadsheets, long enough to see patterns and noise. But it was there. I wasn't the one who didn't want IT in the room. That seems reasonable, Melissa said quietly. I can loop in Raj from IT, and maybe Anita as well to make sure we're all aligned. Kyle pressed his lips together. Is that really necessary? He asked. Raj has a million other things to do. We don't want to turn this into some kind of witch hunt. But you're okay turning it into an interrogation? I asked. He flinched. This isn't an interrogation, Melissa said, but she sounded like she was trying to convince herself now. I'll ask Raj to join us, just for clarity. She stood up and stepped out into the hallway with her phone. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Kyle and I were alone. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said under his breath. If you'd just taken responsibility, we could have kept this quiet. I stared at him. I'm not going to prison for your side hustle, I replied. His face went flat. Watch yourself. Outside, I could see Melissa through the glass, gesturing as she spoke on the phone. 2 doors down, Anita's office was empty. A moment later, her light flicked on. Whatever story Kyle thought he was going to tell about me, it wasn't going to survive contact with actual data. And that, as it turned out, was just the beginning. Raj from IT arrived first, badge swinging, a half-finished coffee in his hand. Anita followed a minute later, expression tight, tablet tucked under her arm. The dynamic in the room shifted immediately. Whatever small power Kyle thought he had evaporated when Anita sat down at the head of the table. Okay, she said. We have about 30 minutes before my next call, so let's get straight to it. We've identified approximately $200,000 in payments to Northline facilities that we cannot match to supporting documentation. I want to understand how those payments were initiated, approved, and processed. I also want to be very clear This is not about taking responsibility in some abstract sense. This is about facts. She looked at me first. Grant, walk me through your role. I laid it out calmly. I process invoices that are submitted through the system, I said. For Northline, the workflow is the same as any other vendor. PM submits, manager approves, then it comes to me for coding and payment. I don't change amounts. I don't add invoices. I assign cost codes and post AP. I also don't have rights to create or edit vendors. I confirmed that with Melissa. Anita nodded once. Correct. She turned to Kyle. Who requested Northline as a vendor? Kyle shifted in his chair. I did, he said. They were recommended through one of our subs. We needed a flexible facilities partner. It was all above board. Fine, Anita said. Raj? Raj set his coffee down and opened his laptop. I pulled the vendor file logs and payment logs for Northline back to the date it was created, he said. Every change is stamped with a user ID and timestamp. Want the headline? Yes, Anita said. The vendor was created under Kyle's ID, Raj said. All changes to bank details, address, and contact info were also under Kyle's ID. No other manager touched it. Kyle forced another laugh. Because I'm the one who set it up, he said. That's not unusual. Agreed, Anita said. What about payments? Raj scrolled, eyes scanning. Invoices were entered by various PMs, but approvals before payment are mostly Kyle's ID as well, he said. Grant's ID only appears at the posting stage. He codes them but doesn't initiate or approve the wires. Anita turned her eyes back to me. Did you ever question the volume of payments? She asked. Yes, I said. Not the volume exactly, but the lack of detail. The invoices are vague. Consulting, site services, that sort of thing. I emailed Mark from SI-12 about one. He told me, quote, if Kyle approved, it's good. These are package services from his vendor. Anita's jaw tightened. Did you keep that email? Yes, I replied. I have a folder with all correspondence related to Northline, and I exported the vendor ledger 2 weeks ago when I first started to feel uneasy. Date stamped, saved to my personal drive on the server. I can send it to you. A small release in Anita's shoulders. Do that after this meeting, she said. Thank you. Kyle shifted gears. Look, he said, palms up, playing reasonable. Even if I set up the vendor, that doesn't explain the variance. Someone still had to process things incorrectly. 200,000 doesn't just disappear. Nothing disappeared, I said. It moved. The question is, where? Raj tapped something. I can answer that, he said. Northline's listed bank is First City Credit Union. I traced the outgoing ACH payments. They all land in the same account ending in 7273. And who owns that account? Anita asked. Raj hesitated. I'd need a subpoena to see the name, he said. But I can see the routing history. That account sends regular transfers to another account at the same bank. Ending in? Anita pressed. Raj's fingers flew over the keys. He swallowed. 3091, he said. The silence was loud enough to feel. Anita looked at Kyle. Is there any particular reason the last 4 digits of that account number match the last 4 digits of your personal checking on file for payroll? She asked. All the blood that had slowly drained from Kyle's face over the last hour seemed to try to rush back at once. He went blotchy. That must be a coincidence, he said weakly. You can't even see names. This is insane. Raj shook his head. I can't see the name on 3091, he said, but I can see incoming transfers. Payroll hits that account twice a month from our payroll vendor. Same amount as your net pay, Kyle. Same routing, same last 4. It's the same destination account. My irritation gave way to something colder. Not quite satisfaction yet, but something close. You were never asking me what I did with the money, I said quietly. You were trying to find out how much I'd already seen. Kyle snapped toward me. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. You don't understand how complex these structures are. There are vendor consolidation arrangements. Back to back. Anita held up a hand. Stop, she said. Right now, you're not helping yourself. Anita, this is clearly a misunderstanding, Kyle insisted, desperate now. We can clean this up internally. I'll get you supporting docs. Just give me until the end of the week. Supporting documents you didn't have yesterday when I asked, Anita said. No, this is beyond a policy violation. This is potentially fraud. He turned back to me, sudden venom in his voice. You think you're some kind of hero, don't you? He hissed. Keeping your little backup folders. Running to Anita. You have no idea what you've just done to this company. Something inside me finally snapped into place. For years I'd been the helpful guy, the one who stayed late to fix other people's messes, the one who let managers make lazy jokes because they don't mean anything by it, the one who laughed it off when Kyle called me his numbers monkey in front of the team. Not today. All I did, I said, was refuse to confess to a crime I didn't commit. Whatever happens to this company because of your choices is not on me. Kyle opened his mouth, eyes wild, but Anita was already speaking. Melissa, she said, please contact legal and let them know we have a potential internal embezzlement matter. Raj, I want a full audit of all vendors created or modified under Kyle's ID for the last 3 years. Grant, send me your backups as soon as we're done here. She looked at Kyle again. Effective immediately. You're suspended with pay pending investigation, she said. You will not access company systems. Your building badge will be disabled when you leave this room. Do you understand? He stared at her, stunned, like the words were in a language he'd never heard before. You can't be serious, he said. Anita, we've worked together for 7 years. You're going to take his word. I'm not taking anyone's word, she cut in. I'm taking logs, bank records, and approval chains. The data is very clear. If there is any context that explains it, you can share that with legal present. But this conversation is over. For a moment, no one moved. Then the door opened, and security, not with guns or drama, just 2 quiet men from the front desk, stepped in. Mr. Ward, one of them said, we'll walk you out. Kyle's chair scraped back. He looked at me one last time with a hatred so sharp I could feel it from across the table. This isn't over, he said. I met his eyes. For me, I said, it is. He grabbed his laptop bag like a lifeline, then remembered they'd be taking it from him and let his hand fall. He walked out between the 2 security guards, past the glass wall, down the corridor I'd watched him strut through 100 times before. This time, no one met his eyes. The door closed behind them with a soft, final click. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. For the first time since Kyle leaned on my cubicle wall that morning, the weight in my chest shifted from anger to something else. I hadn't come into work trying to ruin anyone's life. I'd just decided I was done letting people ruin mine. The chaos after Kyle's suspension wasn't cinematic. There were no sirens, no dramatic confrontations in the lobby. It was quieter than that. Legal sent emails. Raj ran scripts. Anita scheduled a lot of meetings with subject lines like follow-up North Line and vendor audit, Phase 2. I kept my head down and did my job. That afternoon, Anita called me into her office. Door closed, blinds half drawn. First, she said, I want to thank you for pushing for logs instead of letting this become a narrative exercise. I sat in the chair opposite her, hands on my knees. I wasn't trying to be difficult, I said. I just didn't want to guess. That's why I hired you, she said simply. You're not easily bullied. That was funny, in a sad way. If she knew how many times I'd swallowed irritation in that office over the years, she might have picked a different word. We're bringing in an external forensic firm, she went on. Once they're engaged, they'll probably want to talk to you. They'll go through everything, not just North Line. Okay, I said, whatever they need. She studied me for a second. Just so you know, she added, we've already confirmed internally that you don't have vendor creation rights and that you handled the invoices according to policy. You're not under suspicion. Hearing it out loud did something to me I wasn't expecting. My throat felt tight. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "If at any point you feel pressured or uncomfortable about this, you come to me directly," she said. "No more small conference rooms without my knowledge. Understood?" "Understood." The forensic firm moved fast. They were ex-Big Four types with neutral expressions and empty legal pads that somehow filled up anyway. They sat with me for an hour, asked about my process, my access, any unusual conversations. They asked how long I'd had a gut feeling about Northline. "Maybe a month," I said. When the description stayed vague and the amounts kept creeping up, I started backing up emails and exports just in case. "That was smart," one of them said. "Most people don't think that far ahead." "That's kind of my whole job," I replied. Outside of work, life stayed strangely normal. I still made my evening pasta, still watered the sad plant on my windowsill, still watched late-night reruns I'd already seen. The only difference was that my shoulders slowly relaxed, back down to where they were supposed to live. 3 weeks later, Anita called another meeting. This time, it was in the big conference room. Legal, HR, Raj, the forensic team, and the CEO, James, were all there. James didn't waste time. "The investigators have completed their preliminary review," he said. "The short version is, Kyle appears to have set up at least 3 shell vendors, including Northline, and funneled approximately $380,000 through them over the last 18 months. 200 of that was in the Special Initiatives account. The rest is spread across other jobs." He glanced at me briefly, then continued. "The activity is well documented. There's no evidence of collusion inside accounting beyond Kyle's actions, and no evidence any non-manager staff were involved. Based on this, we've terminated Kyle for cause and notified the district attorney. We'll be pursuing recovery where possible." Melissa's pen didn't move this time. There was nothing left to write. James turned directly to me. "I've been told," he said, "that if you'd just rolled over in that first meeting, we might have ended up with a very convenient, very wrong story. So, thank you for not rolling over." I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious with everyone looking at me. "I didn't do anything special," I said. "I just asked for the truth." "Most people don't," he said. "They take what's handed to them. We're going to put better controls in place so you're not in that position again." After the meeting, Anita pulled me aside. "There's going to be a gap in leadership," she said. "We'll be posting for a new accounting manager. I'd like you to apply." It should have been flattering. A year earlier, I might have said yes on the spot. Instead, I asked, "Can I be honest?" She smiled faintly. "I hope so." "I don't know if I want to lead here," I said. "Not right now. I don't want to spend the next few years cleaning up ghosts from Kyle's projects or wondering who else was cutting corners. I just got my peace of mind back. I'm not sure I want to gamble it." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "Fair enough," she said. "If you decide to stay, the role is yours to compete for. If you decide to go, I'll write you the strongest reference I legally can." "Thank you," I said again. I thought about it for a week. In that week, people treated me differently. Some with awkward distance, like I was radioactive. Some with sudden friendliness, like maybe standing next to me in the break room would improve their own ethics. A few quietly came by my desk and said things like, "I'm glad it wasn't you, and good for you for standing up for yourself." It was nice, but I didn't need it. The person whose opinion of me I'd been fighting for was my own. On Friday, I sent Anita an email. "I've decided to move on. 2 months' notice. Enough time to hand over clean work and leave without drama." She called me in and tried once more to change my mind, but she didn't push. She just shook my hand and said, "Wherever you go, they'll be lucky to have you." I believed her, and more importantly, I believed that I deserved to work somewhere I didn't have to keep private backup folders just to feel safe. My last day, I cleaned out my desk, turned in my badge, and walked past the small conference room where Kyle had asked, "What did you do with it?" I could still see his face when I'd said, 200,000. "What?" and watched the blood drain out of him. For a while, that moment replayed in my head with a kind of grim satisfaction. Not because I enjoyed seeing someone fall, but because it was the exact second I stopped being a convenient character in someone else's story and started being the author of my own. I took a job 3 weeks later at a smaller firm across town. Lower profile, tighter controls, people who seemed almost aggressively allergic to creative accounting. During the interview, when they asked why I was leaving my old company, I told them the truth in one clean sentence. I refused to take the blame for money my manager stole. They hired me anyway, or maybe because of that. These days, my life is simple. I still color code my spreadsheets. I still notice patterns before most people. I still keep documentation. That's just good practice. But I don't stay late for people who treat me like a human firewall. I don't laugh at jokes that chip away at my dignity. I don't sit quietly in rooms where the story is being twisted around me. If someone ever looks at me again and says, "What did you do with it?" when they're really asking, "Will you carry this for me?" I know my answer. I'll do exactly what I did that Tuesday. Tell the truth, ask for the logs, and put the responsibility back where it belongs. Kyle tried to make me the fall guy for his missing 200 grand. 30 minutes after he asked his question, the only thing missing was his access badge. The money left a trail. So did I.